all-time eligibles. Anthony Munoz and Mike Singletary head the list of luminaries. And we look at Anthony Munoz, a Pro Bowler during his 13 years with the Cincinnati Bengals, was one of the 3 tackles selected to the NFL's 75th all-time team. His combination of size and quickness became the standard for today's tackle. Singletary, a middle linebacker, cut out of the same cloth as Bear great Dick Butkus, will join Mike Ditka and Walter Payton as the 3rd guy from that '86 Super Bowl team. Here's the other players that were inducted. Wide receiver Tommy McDonald, a 6-time Pro Bowler, played for 5 teams. Center Dwight Stevenson, who played for Miami, played in 5 straight Pro Bowls. And safety Paul Krause played 16 years with the Vikings and Redskins and finished with 81 interceptions, which remains, well, it remains an NFL record. Well, there's lots more ahead on Prime Monday. Mike Tirico on how more than the Broncos are counting on John Elway to come through in Super Bowl 32. Distant replay.
Everybody talks about everything in this Super Bowl except special teams until the game's actually played. And then everybody goes, oh, yeah, kick returns, punt returns. They really turn games around. I think they will miss not having an explosive force like Desmond Howard. There was a reason he was the MVP last year.
Well, you played special teams on both sides of the ball. 2 weeks ago, San Francisco, they pinned the 49ers inside their 20 7 times. So they're holding teams back.
Everybody says the Packers are Brett Favre. As he goes, so do they go. So how about Brett Favre himself? Is he better, you think, this time than last year?
Brett Favre is also better. Brett Favre is the best quarterback in the game right now and maybe the best player in the game. They went against the #1 defense in the league in San Francisco and just shredded it. Talked to Shannon Sharp earlier this week, who said usually that kind of thing is sort of intangible. It is tangible. There are ways they can look at film and see that Brett Favre is better than he was a year ago, which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
I feel very secure agreeing with you, Michael. And since 1995, Brett Favre has thrown 110 touchdown passes and only 27 interceptions. They haven't turned the ball over in their last 3.5 games, and only 3 teams have won a Super Bowl with a minus turnover ratio. The last time it happened was 18 years ago, and that was Pittsburgh against the Rams.
You know what I've observed in Super Bowls? There always seems to be a moment when the teams decide who they are during the course of the game. And everyone keeps talking about Green Bay may not be the same as their last year's championship form. I think they haven't had to be until the championship moment tomorrow. And I think there'll be a moment tomorrow where Green Bay says, we are fated to be the champions in this game. And I think there'll be a moment where Denver realizes they're fated to be a very, very good runner-up. Mark?
All right, thanks, guys. Coming up, Mike Tirico takes an historical look at the quarterback class of '83, thought to be the best ever. John Elway is its last hope to win a Super Bowl. And Soundtracks is your ticket to a trip to the sideline for the AFC Championship game.
Great day to be alive. Go kick their ass. All day, get in his face. Kill him. Finish him off.
Super Bowl 25. It was a game of drama and dignity in which even a crucial mistake was more poignant and pathetic. It was a game for the ages, but it was played in an atmosphere where more important events of the day were not forgotten.
2 months later, Operation Desert Storm came to a triumphant conclusion. The Buffalo Bills returned to the Super Bowl, but did not come close to matching their near-victorious effort in Tampa. As for Bill Parcells, well, he retired in May of 1991, only to re-emerge with the New England Patriots in 1993. Now, only Don Shula has ever led 2 different franchises to a Super Bowl, so Parcells certainly has his work cut out for him. But whatever he does or doesn't accomplish in New England, he will always have the legacy of winning what was the greatest Super Bowl of all time, a game that was played the way all Super Bowls should be played. Super Bowl 28 was the 4th straight Super Bowl for the Buffalo Bills. And for the first half, they led the defending champion Dallas Cowboys. But in the second half, Dallas proved their greatness and won easily. 2 months later, the Cowboys lost one of their most important stars, head coach Jimmy Johnson. The man who took just 5 years to turn a 1-15 team into a 2-time NFL champion resigned, leaving Super Bowl 28 as a punctuation mark to one of the NFL's greatest success stories.
Super Bowl program! Buffalo! Super Bowl in the house! Super Bowl 28! Super Bowl! Buffalo Bills and the Cowgirls, because we're going to make cowgirls out of the Cowboys!
Dallas Cowboys are going to win it all, walk the walk, talk the talk.
It's a rematch, the first in NFL history, with the Buffalo Bills playing Rocky, the Dallas Cowboys as Apollo Creed. And talking of heavyweights, everyone who's anyone from Muhammad Ali to Frank Sinatra is in town in Atlanta this week. So are most of the rest of the American population, half of them apparently standing on street corners, holding signs saying "Need 2 tickets."
Cowboys are #1. The world team. Cowboys! This is our year. Let's go Buffalo!
For the 4th consecutive year, the Buffalo Bills were AFC champions. Each time they had been blinded by Super Bowl glitter. Would they finally become world champions, or would they become the first professional sports team in history to lose 4 straight world championship games?
We got to come back. 4th time. We got to do it this time. Selling out 4 quarters. That's all it needs to be said.
It was a record-setting 7th Super Bowl appearance for the Dallas Cowboys, who set their sights on back-to-back trophies. Super Bowl 28 was a rematch of a team that hoped to win versus a team that knew it would.
I'm trying to keep from hyperventilating before the kickoff. I might just pass out right now.
Monkey off our back, because we should be a team also talking about repeating. So if you look at these two coaches as coordinators for the 49ers, Super Bowl 24, Super Bowl 29, Mike Holmgren, 55 points, Mike Shanahan, 49.
Well, Sterling, obviously these guys...
John Adam, that's John Elway.
You know, Joe, what's surprising, you know, years ago when we talked about the West Coast offense, we would never be talking about power running from the I formation. Now when you look at both these teams, they're both power runners from the I formation.
And it's going to be very interesting to watch these two former quarterbacks match wits and, you know, philosophies on the sideline tomorrow. It's going to be very, very interesting, no doubt about it. Well, 6 quarterbacks were taken in the first round of the NFL draft back in 1983. It is commonly referred to as the richest quarterback draft in the modern era. But Mike Tirico documents that the great expectations have resulted in even greater disappointment.
Mark, thank you. We're taking a break from Super Bowl week, a little boat ride to talk about, well, what's been talked about back here in the city all week. You know, every time you walk around Super Bowl week, somebody's going to ask, who do you think is going to win the big game? Well, you know what's interesting this week in San Diego? You take away the mile-high maniacs and the cheeseheads, just talk to the neutral fans. They all preface their Super Bowl choice, it seems, with one phrase. Say, you know, I'd like to see John Elway win it this year because he deserves it. The real Captain Comeback has come back for one more shot. At age 37, after waiting 8 years, he again steps into sports' brightest spotlight. But this time, John Elway's seen in a different light. While losing 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, John was the tragic figure. He returns for a 4th try as the sentimental choice. After all, #1 overall draft picks are supposed to win Super Bowls. Bradshaw, Plunkett, and Aikman combined for 9-0. Super Bowl history is not fair. Wins in the big game are not reserved for the all-time greats. Tarkington, Kelly, and Elway have not won. Hostetler, Rippon, and Williams have. Elway. Those 5 letters appear everywhere in the stats that rank the pantheon of great passers. This week, he joins another elite list. 5th quarterback to get a 4th superstar. Bradshaw and Montana never lost. Roger Staubach was 2-2. Jim Kelly never won. And that is where the Elway legacy may rest. Will he join Kelly as 0-4 in Super Bowl starts? The two, along with Dan Marino, the poster boys for the class of '83. The best vintage at the sport's most important position. Including Tony Easton's Super Bowl 20 start, the class of '83 is 0-9. 15 years later, the wins, records, and credentials of Kelly, Marino, and Elway are beyond soiling further. But make no mistake, while the rest of the class of '83 will not be on the field tomorrow night, their reputations will be. When they write the history of the class of 1983, it will read much tidier without the line, "They never won a Super Bowl." So many tomorrow will be pulling for John Elway. And if he wins, it will mean a lot for so many. Mark?
Thanks, Mike. In Elway's first decade in the NFL, he managed only one season with 20 or more touchdowns and as many interceptions as touchdowns. Since 1983, he's thrown for twice as many TDs as interceptions and tossed 20 or more touchdown passes in 4 of the last 5 years. The Sports Ball was taken and asked the question, if John Elway loses Super Bowl 32, how will the quarterback class of '83 be remembered? Well, 52% said it would still be the greatest class of all time. 48 will remember them as the winless quarterback crew from 1983. Well, steamrolling along, Leslie Visser heads backstage with Hall of Famer Larry Zonka 25 years after the Dolphins' perfect season. And Archie Manning has been a longtime friend of Jim Mora. Will Indianapolis become Peyton's place? The answer man, Chris Mortensen, will be along with that information next.
Giving you life, the Bills continued a methodical march to the end zone. And early in the second quarter, they completed an 80-yard drive with the game's first touchdown.
Thurman is in the run spot. They spot the ball at the 4, first and goal. Kelly waits. Thurman runs. Breaks the tackle. Goes in for the touchdown. Thurman Thomas has scored. Thurman Thomas goes in standing up.
Boy, was that a good move, though. Man, was that a nice move. Jim Jeffcoat had a bead on him at around the 4. Thomas made him miss, and the Bills have the lead with 12:26 to play until halftime. And the Buffalo Bills have come to play in this Super Bowl. That's a great move to the whole squad. I got to have it doing it. It went great. Now you're ready. You're right. Hey, when you cut on it. Hey, fellas, they know how we play that stuff. They know we're going to play it real tight, and they know we're going to jack them up.
The coordinator, Brian Billick, submitted his resignation. There's been some threats from Dennis Green. How is all that going to shake out?
Well, the threats have gone to a little bit higher level. Ray Anderson, Dennis Green's agent, met with Vikings President Roger Hedrick last night, and he said the threat is real. If Dennis does not get a contract extension by Tuesday, he is resigning. I've heard from owners and executives say that Dennis Green is committing professional suicide. Let's wait and see on this. I think if the Vikings do have to make a coaching change, or if Dennis steps down, I think Sherman Lewis of the Green Bay Packers is a real candidate there.
Well, certainly Mike Holmgren has spent, as you mentioned, Sherman Lewis. He spent most of this week answering questions.
With Bruce Smith often left with one-on-one blocking, Buffalo's all-pro defensive end kept the heat on Troy Aikman, and the normally precise Dallas offense was still searching for its rhythm midway through the second quarter.
Hey, all you got to do, like on 3rd and 4th, everybody, you just hook right 4 or 5 yards. You got it first.
Michael Irvin and the Cowboys eventually found the gaps underneath Buffalo's zone defense as the Bills played it soft to take away the Dallas deep routes.
First and 10 at the Bills' 37. Aikman, straight drop. Here comes Bruce. He steps up, deep ball to the middle. It's intercepted. At the 12-yard line, it was underthrown. They went back to a 4-man front. Nate Newton had to pick up a man on the inside. That left Bruce Smith with the single man, part 2 and A, to go by. He did. He puts pressure on Aikman. Aikman's throw is underthrown, and it's Buffalo's ball. Team defense, baby. Team defense. Hey, they don't want it. You can look over there. They ain't making no noise.
The stunned Cowboys watched the Bills quickly move into position to extend their 10-6 lead.
Ball at the Dallas 34. Kelly backpedaling in the pocket. He throws long. A man is there. It's caught there by Reed. And Reed is down at the 12-yard line. And another timeout with 27 seconds to play.
With time running down in the half, The Bills were faced with 3rd and 7 at the Cowboys' 9. A Buffalo touchdown would have been a big boost before halftime. But another ill-advised shovel pass killed the drive, and Buffalo had to settle for a 7-point lead.
This will be a 28-yard field goal try. There's the put down and the kick on the way. It's high into the net, and it is good. And the Bills on the final play of the first half have taken a 13-6 lead on the heavily favored Cowboys, but that's only the half of it, so don't go away.
About how to stop Brett Favre, and the Packers, Sterling Sharp has offered for $1 million that he would give us a blueprint. Now, we have all chipped in for considerably less money, I might add. And we've convinced the grand poobah of architectural analysis to give it up and tell us, how do you stop Brett Favre?
Well, I tell you what, you look at the games that they played throughout the year, I think the blueprint is this. You go back to key games and key points throughout the season, and they'll show you how to beat the Green Bay Packers. First and foremost, let's go back to the Indianapolis Colts game. What you want to do is play action pass, work the tight end position. Ken Dilger does a great job catching the football in his hands, a la Shannon Sharp tomorrow if the play action pass is working. You have to score on opportunities. Robert Smith against the Vikings does a great job finding the hole and getting this football down as far as he got it. It should have been a touchdown. He stepped out of bounds, scored only 3 points, and they lose this football game. You got to score touchdowns against the Packers. Last but not least, blitz Brett Favre and force him to his left. He is not comfortable that way. He'll do things like this 2 or 3 times a game. You have to take advantage of him. They blitzed Brett Favre in the Eagle game so much until, look at this, no pressure at all. Look which way he goes. Forces himself to go to his left. Well, I'd have to charge you a little bit more to show this. But I think you have to look no farther than one game for the Denver Broncos, and that's the San Francisco 49er game on Monday night. What you need to do is have your defensive lineman, Joe talked about it earlier, blow up plays in the backfield like this. That'll stop Terrell Davis from doing all those little cute things to get up yardage. Look at, you got to have yards after the catch. J.J. Stokes catches a pass right here, an 18-yard pass, and ends up scoring a touchdown because the Denver Broncos secondary has done a terrible job of tackling all year long. Catch the ball, get it upfield, maximize your yardage. They are going to come with the blitz. If they can't get there at their front four, you have to make them pay. San Francisco made Denver play by throwing on the night,
has coughed up the ball for a touchdown.
The unquestioned key play of Super Bowl 28 belonged to Leon Lett, number 78, who knifed into the Bills' backfield and stripped Thomas of the ball. James Washington and friends.
I think the problem with having Darian Gordon return kicks is this. If he lays one on the ground, one goes off his face mask like it did against Pittsburgh, he now has to go and play defense.
The Bills defense does not seem to be fired up at this time. They need a play here.
You can't over pursue the ball now. You got to make sure you hold your gap because he's looking to cut it back every time.
Oh, what a run by the league's MVP. Emmett Smith takes it home, and the Cowboys have turned this game dramatically. Down, most backs, almost all backs would have gone down, but he shakes a tackle, moves back inside, outruns everybody else, and the Cowboys have the lead.
In conclusion, Emmitt Smith's well-deserved MVP honor decided the other.
That team was represented by one guy alone, and that was Larry Zonka, and the way he played the game. And I know you had a chance to visit with him.
I did, and you know, Mark, one time Don Shula said this man did stand above the rest. Well, Larry Zonka, a native son of Ohio, played for another man from the Buckeye State, and both had similar traits, a fiery competitiveness that led to a perfect season. Zonka now hunts in Alaska and fishes in Florida, but he says he is reminded of that undefeated season almost every day.
I think so.
Come join us on ESPN.
Larry, tell me the appeal of fishing, and has this been a lifelong pursuit?
And hunting and fishing was my first love. Football came down the list from that. Of course, it was tough to make a living hunting and fishing back then until I made a name for myself in football.
Is it true that Don Shula said to you in the beginning of the year, we'll take each game at a time and win every game?
Even for him, that was a statement that just kind of bounced off the wall, and I thought, he really is crazy. Somehow, some way, each week someone starred, whether it was Jim Kick or Jake Scott or Manny Fernandez, whoever it was, special teams play, whoever it was, someone would come out of the shell in the fourth quarter, and that was the hero of the week.
What's your reaction when you hear that some people say the 78 Steelers or the 85 Bears or even the 92 Cowboys were the best teams?
I think that comes down to my Ohio background. I know it's horse racing. I don't care.
Go back to this year's Hall of Fame induction. Was it meaningful to you that both Don Shula's sons quoted you?
Some days we love to love him. Some days we love to hate him.
I did that at his retirement dinner.
But we always loved him.
You know, everybody got up and said really nice, flowery things about Don Shula, and there's a lot of players that play for Don Shula. They'll be the first, not just me, they'll be the first to tell you that he's a tough-ass guy to be around. He's very demanding. No detail is too small. And like any good leader, he puts that together.
Was there a reason you didn't go to the 20th or the 25th reunion?
The front office and I still don't get along. I can't
It's
seem to
different
just...
people.
Well, in defense, we called 6 months ahead of time and said, when are you going to do this? Because I'm going to New Zealand to do things, and I want to know about. And I didn't really get a definitive answer until it was so late that I had to plan the trip. 5 days into it, I had to stay behind and been 5 days tardy to the other thing, and it just kind of, frankly, pissed me off. So I went ahead and went to New Zealand.
When you left for the WFL, do you think in some ways that you helped change the league, you helped bring about all this free agency, this attention?
If it wasn't myself and Paul Warfield and Jim Kick leaving that brought it about, we were certainly in the nucleus of people that helped bring it about. I think through that World Football League situation that the door opened and we realized, the Players Association started to realize what kind of money the teams were making, and free agency was the next step.
Did you ever think how great it would be to run behind 340-pound Nate Newton, 330-pound Eric Williams? I mean, the offensive lines in your day, would they average 250?
Well, that's probably the most difficult football question anyone's ever asked me. I had fellas, Jim Langer, Bob Kuechenberg, and Larry Little, that weighed 235 or 240 pounds. I weighed as much or more than they did at 250. And I just thought, my God, what is Monty Clark doing? But what Monty Clark saw and realized about those three individuals was that they were tenacious people. They were winners.
Should Elway and Dan Marino not realize their promise or never end up with a Super Bowl ring, do you think that your career would not have been complete if you hadn't won a Super Bowl?
I can't picture not having at least one win in the Super Bowl. The reason you line up is to have that ring just once, to be there and be the best. I had an opportunity recently to sit with Dan Marino. I told Dan I wouldn't ever trade the perfect season for anything, but I'd certainly trade one or two of the not-so-glorious years of my career just to spend one season if I could get my 27-year-old body back and be in the backfield with you to where I could get that 3rd and 1 for you, because it would change your world terrifically. And he just smiled and nodded because he understood what I was talking about.
While Larry wishes one more Super Bowl for Dan Marino, he told me he really enjoys watching the fierce pride of this year's quarterbacks. He said Brett Favre reminds him of Burt Jones, kind of a linebacker in a quarterback's body, and that Elway has the same control and understanding of the passing game as Joe Namath. Pretty interesting observation.
It is, and I think people forget that Larry Zonka actually played 3 years for the Giants after the WFL collapsed before he went back and finished out with the Dolphins in '79. Now, I know they get together quite a bit every year, celebrate the fact that nobody's gone undefeated. As you spoke to him, is there any feeling that he feels somebody might repeat that feat?
Oh, they don't think so. Mark, he jealously guards it. Remember when the Bears came in undefeated in '85 and all the former 72 players went and spoke to the team? So they are insisting that this is never repeated. But he said because of free agency and because of the salary cap, he doesn't think it'll happen.
So there are a lot of other dates with...
He was beat. He put his hand right on his head.
Absolutely right.
successful play fake to Martin froze the linebackers and opened up the secondary.
Oh, we got a football game. It looked like the Packers going to blow them off the field, but they got a couple of breaks. Now it's a football game.
And deep, and it is caught by Terry Glenn at the 5-yard line. What a great keeping grab. Terry Glenn, first and goal to go. Whoa, what a catch. 45-yard throw by Drew. Bill Parcells is a notorious gambler. A third and short, and he goes on the play action. Terry Glenn, it looked like he had the separation that he needed, but it was a perfectly thrown ball and a big gainer for the Patriots. Play action fake, Bledsoe rolling right, looking, fires, touchdown to their coach. Touchdown to their coach. Patriots take the lead.
Bledsoe's fakes are driving the Packers crazy.
The Patriots...
The ring would say world champions on there, too. You know? It would look like this one? Oh, shot, Joe, shot.
We're going to let Joe right here get back to wardrobe. Next up, distant replay, a look back at Super Bowl I when the television war to capture Super Bowl Sunday was as fierce as the battle on the field.
Somewhere in this drive, they're going to have a big play, but right now they need to run the ball and possess the ball.
All right, Brett Favre brings his team to the line of scrimmage. A very quick New England team so far.
Change of plays.
Brett has had a receiver open twice on changes of plays. This time he's going to go long upfield. There's
Wide open.
Freeman, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25 down the sideline.
He's all the way.
A long pass play.
The competition between CBS and NBC took on a real sense of rivalry.
From day one, there was always the feeling that there was a certain amount of superiority in the CBS camp.
And in NBC's camp?
We felt, in working with the league office, we were kind of really second-rate guys. Not second-rate, but not really as important as perhaps they felt their brethren from CBS were.
They had good people, and they had their pride, and we had our pride, and we had very good people.
We had some personnel problems. Some guys got a little too exuberant on the days leading up to the game.
There's a lot of animosity, a lot of fists swung in the lot outside the stadium. So much so that they had, the next day we came, they had built a 10-foot chain link fence between the CBS trucks and the NBC trucks to keep them apart. We were fine, the broadcast, but not the technicians.
CBS's cameras and crews would shoot the game, leaving NBC no control and few choices to make.
While the game was on, they were just taking the feed coming out of the CBS truck. You know, with our cameras, our camera personnel, calling the shots. So while I wasn't in their truck, I'm sure that they were probably fuming, probably criticizing selection of coverage, if you will. But there wasn't a whole lot to do.
Considering how little NBC did have to do, it's hard to explain their incredible blunder that occurred at the end of the halftime break.
And boom, there's a kickoff. And all of a sudden, their flag's going down, a whistle's blowing, and everything stopped.
And somebody yelled out in the field, "Hey, don't kick off yet. We're not on the air. We're with the affiliate."
NBC was not back from a commercial break. It was waved off before the ball was caught by the receiver, but there were 2 second-half kickoffs.
After the game, the network battle ended in hand-to-hand combat in the Packers locker room.
And we have Ratterman for NBC, Summerall for CBS, and one microphone. And Pat has the microphone. And George Ratterman asks a question and goes to grab the microphone from Summerall. In the truck, Bill McPhail says, "Tell him to get that damn microphone back." So what you see on the screen is Pat Summerall smiling very nicely at George Ratterman while George is talking, and going this way with that big ham hands of his and pulling the microphone right back. It was quite a time, that first Super Bowl.
With CBS in the broadcast booth and the Packers on the field, it seems the NFL beat the AFL not once, but twice in the same game.
31 years later, that's the big cue. All eyes will be on San Diego tomorrow. Super Bowl 32, the biggest sporting event on the face of the earth. The two quarterbacks, John Elway and Brett Favre, will go at it. Like John Elway, Josh knows what it's like to wear number 7 and lose the Super Bowl, but Joe won wearing 7. Next up, he breaks down the shotgun mechanics that might get Elway his first 32. Jay Leno has nothing on these guys, I'm going to tell you right now. Well, the only time John Elway and Brett Favre have faced each other was back in 1993. Favre connected on 20 of 32 for 235 and 3 touchdowns, including this 66-yard strike. To none other, no, it's not Sterling, it's Jackie Harris. The only costly mistake came in the third quarter when Mike Kroll intercepted a Favre pass. He returned that one for 22 yards and a touchdown. Elway threw a franchise record 59 passes for 367 yards. But he was constantly harassed by Reggie White in the Packer pass rush. Green Bay sacked Elway 4 times on their way to a 30-27 win over the Broncos. Now, Favre has thrown 30-plus touchdowns in an NFL record 4 straight seasons. Elway's 4 most productive years in terms of touchdown passes have come in the last 5 seasons, including a career-high 27 in 1997. Well, now, certainly age and Terrell Davis, the emergence of that running back, has had an impact on John Elway's career. He doesn't run around as much, but yet I watched Mike Shanahan, and it looks, though, Joe, that he's designed an offense to try to at least allow Elway to make some big plays.
You know, Mark, you're absolutely right, but I'd like to set the record straight in talking to John. A lot of people have talked about the fact that this is Terrell Davis's football team. I don't think so. I think Terrell Davis is still a very big part of what the Denver Broncos do on offense. But this is still John Elway's football team. And John Elway is most effective when he's given an opportunity to run out of the shotgun offense. John Elway spends a lot of time in a shotgun formation. It causes a noise, and it's so hard to hear. What he'll do is he will not yell and scream. He will only give a simple set count, and then you'll see him lift his leg. And after a 2 count, the center will snap the ball. Ready, guys? Here we go. Set. Cut. And then we'll start the play. The next thing we want to do is I'm going to show you the advantage John Elway has against what we call a free runner. That's an unblocked back or backer coming at him. But by John Elway being back 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, it gives him an opportunity to set, drop back a little bit, and throw the ball. Ready? Set. You'll see that John has enough time to be able to get the ball off, even though we have a free runner. Last thing we're going to work on is we're going to work on John Elway, this time having the rush come up outside, okay? And he's now going to run with the football. The crowd's loud, they're screaming and yelling. It's Super Bowl 32. Set. John starts to go, he starts to go. Now he tucks it away, and now he's smart. He runs out of bounds with the first down. Now those are the things that you're going to see John Elway do. Those are just a few of the ways that John Elway continues to be a great part of this Denver offense. And the other thing is, when John Elway goes in the shotgun, he's going to have a chance to look at that entire defense and cause problems for Fritz Shurmur, because if Fritz wants to come after him, there aren't a whole lot of places that he has a chance to get to him that he can't get that ball off real quick.
You know, Joe, you're amazing. You'll do anything to get a tryout. You'll round the team up, go out there and tape everything. That's my audition tape. As a quarterback, I love the shotgun. I've played in it for over 10 years, and it gets you away from the rush, and it gives the blockers in the backfield better angles to pick up the blitz. And here's a real good example of that. We'll show Shannon Sharp in the backfield here. There he is, spot shadowed. Now watch how he looks from the inside out to pick up the blitz. Maximum protection, 7 people. Look at the separation. Shannon Sharp now comes to the outside and picks up the blitz. Unfortunately, Terrell Davis didn't do a good enough job of picking up the inside blitz. But the scheme from the shotgun is very good when you have 2 guys in the backfield. You give the quarterback time, you give him separation, and you can get big plays out of the shotgun formation. And what I love about what really Mike Shanahan loves to do is think protection first. In a game like this, against Rick Shermer, when he's going to throw everything at you but the kitchen sink, you've got to keep the quarterback upright, Sterling.
Well, the thing you talked about is using opportunity here, Mark.
Well, they have an excellent opportunity. We'll see if you guys are right. That does it. A program reminder, we'll be coming to you from Hawaii Prime Monday from the Pro Bowl at 7:30 Eastern. Les Josey didn't make the team. Thanks. Coming up, prime time with Roy Firestone. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and enjoy the Super
Dwight
Bowl.
Stevenson and Cincinnati tackle Anthony Munoz.
I was sitting in this room back here, and I thought I was pretty calm.
One final note, Brett Favre won't be going to Disney World after the game. He declined the offer. But Eugene Robinson and Leroy Butler are among the half-dozen Packers who've signed confidential agreements to head south after the game if they are named the MVP. Well, now let's go to our MVP, Mike Golick.
Thanks, Leslie. The only MVP award I ever won was the one my kids gave me when I took them to Disney World. It's been a magical 2-year ride for the Packers, and one of the keys to this...
He conquered mathematics, with Joe Montana throwing 35 passes without an interception. That would be a Super Bowl record until Montana topped it again against the Bengals in 1989. There's no question about it. The 1984 San Francisco 49ers were Bill Walsh's best team.